In 1972, the world saw the birth of something absolutely outrageous. A car so insane, so unpredictable, that some dealers were too scared to let people test drive it. It looked like a supermodel, roared like a beast, and had a reputation so dangerous, even Elvis shot his, twice, not metaphorically. He literally put holes in it. This is the Tomaso Pantera, an Italian-American Frankenstein machine that broke rules, broke hearts, and occasionally broke itself. It had the DNA of a Ferrari, the soul of a Mustang, and the reliability of a firework in a microwave. But if you could tame it, it would reward you with one of the rawest driving experiences on Earth. And what's hidden underneath its steel skin will shock you. Because this wasn't just a car. It was a revolution wrapped in a death wish. But first, smash that subscribe button like you're slamming the throttle on a Pantera doing a burnout in downtown Modena. You won't want to miss what's coming, especially the secret Ford never wanted you to know. Let's start at the beginning. Alessandro De Tomaso, a former race car driver from Argentina, had one mission: to create exotic cars that challenged the Italians, but at a price Americans could actually afford. He already had experience with sports cars, but the Pantera was meant to be his masterpiece. Meanwhile, Ford was desperate. After killing off the GT40 and not yet ready to launch the Mustang II, yikes, they needed something exotic to spice things up. The two joined forces in what seemed like the perfect marriage. Italy would provide the beauty and engineering. Ford would bring in the V8 power, the money, and the mass production network. The Pantera debuted in 1970. By 1971, it was being sold in Lincoln Mercury dealerships across the US. Think about that. Walk into a showroom in Ohio and see an Italian wedge that looked ready to race Le Mans parked next to a Cougar. But while this cross-continental experiment looked great on a brochure, it was chaos behind the scenes. And you're going to be shocked at just how little Ford actually tested this car before unleashing it on the American public. Pop the hood, or rather the rear hatch, and you'd find one of the nastiest engines Ford ever made, the 351 Cleveland V8, a proper muscle engine known for its wide power band and massive torque. Specs: horsepower 330 plus, torque 344 lb-f 0 60 miles per hour, 5.5 seconds top speed, 159 miles per hour, transmission ZF 5-speed manual, weight 3,100 pounds. This engine, mounted just behind the driver, gave the Pantera perfect weight distribution and a spine-rattling soundtrack. Rev it past 5,000 revolutions per minute, and it would scream like a lion in a wind tunnel. But here's the kicker. This was an engine designed for pickup trucks, stuffed into a mid-engine exotic without much refinement. Think about that. It's like taking a grizzly bear, throwing it in a designer tuxedo, and asking it to dance ballet. On paper, it was genius. On the road, it was unpredictable. At full throttle, the Pantera could go from hero to horror movie in under 5 seconds. But the engine wasn't even the biggest problem. No, the real fire was coming from inside the car. So here's the thing. Mid-engine layouts are great for handling. They're also great for making your cabin feel like a sauna in July. The Pantera suffered from major overheating problems. Early models were infamous for radiators that couldn't keep up, electric fans that gave up like a high school intern heat soak, that turned the cockpit into a slow roast, melting wires under the dash fuel vapor lock in hot climates. Drivers reported legs getting scorched, dashboards warping, and fuse boxes sizzling. Imagine taking your hot date for a spin in your exotic Italian ride, and both of you emerge looking like baked potatoes. Ford tried to fix it in 1972 by upgrading the radiator, repositioning fans, and reworking coolant flow. It helped, but not enough. Even today, Pantera forums are full of custom cooling hacks, and you might think that was the most dangerous part of the car, but oh no. Because next we're talking about why dealerships didn't even want people to drive it off the lot. Yes, this is real. Some US dealers flat out refused to allow test drives of the Pantera. Why? Because the car was a handful. It didn't have power steering. It didn't have ABS. It didn't even have decent visibility. What it did have was a ridiculously heavy clutch, a sensitive throttle, and brakes that required your entire leg. Combine that with the Pantera's short wheelbase and rearward weight bias, and you had a car that would snap into oversteer faster than you could say, uh-oh. There are stories of customers crashing on their first test drive. One reportedly backed into a lamppost before even leaving the dealership. And yes, as mentioned before, Elvis Presley was so fed up with his Pantera not starting that he shot it twice with a .357 Magnum. Legend says the second shot hit the horn, which blared like a final insult. But you want to hear something even crazier? Some owners use these cars for daily driving, even in snow, which leads us to one of their Pantera's weirdest features. Believe it or not, some Americans actually daily drove their Panteras. It sounds insane, but the logic kind of made sense. It had a spacious cabin for a supercar, a massive front trunk, the frunk as hipsters say now, and it used parts sourced from Ford and other mass manufacturers, so you didn't need to order special spark plugs from Italy. In fact, some Pantera parts came from the same bins as the Ford Pinto. Owners who put up with the quirks found the Pantera to be surprisingly usable until it rained, or got hot, or the battery died, or the wipers jammed, or the second gear vanished into the abyss. Still, these cars built a cult following. Mechanics started specializing in Panteras. Owners shared fix-it hacks, and slowly a secret brotherhood of Pantera fanatics emerged. But few of them ever knew that their exotic dream car had build quality that could have been done better by an angry toddler. But you want to hear something even crazier? Some owners use these cars for daily driving, even in snow. Which leads us to one of the Pantera's weirdest features. Believe it or not, some Americans actually daily drove their Panteras. It sounds insane, but the logic kind of made sense. Unlike modern cars built by robotic precision, early Panteras were hand-welded, hand-painted, and occasionally hand-guessed. Panel gaps were all over the place, paint finishes varied wildly. Some cars came with tool marks still visible on the inside panels. Wiring was experimental. You could take 10 Panteras from the same year, and no two would be alike. Some had misaligned doors, others had windows that didn't quite roll up. A few were painted over factory dust. The steel body was strong, but also vulnerable to rust, and many examples today have undergone extensive restorations, sometimes costing more than the car's original MSRP. Speaking of which, original price, 1972, $10,000 adjusted for inflation today, $73,000, current collector price, for clean examples, $100,000 to $250, 000 plus. But even with those flaws, the Pantera was too cool to die. And what happened after Ford ditched the project? That's when it truly evolved. Ford gave up on the Pantera in 1975, quietly pulling it from US showrooms. But De Tomaso kept building it in Europe, improving the design and engineering. More power, up to 500 plus HP in GT5 and GT5S models. Better cooling, flared wheel arches, wider tyres and better suspension interior refinements. The Pantera evolved into a true exotic rivaling Ferraris and Lambos, but without the mainstream backing it remained underground. Ironically, while the early Pantera got mocked in America, the later models gained massive respect in Europe and Japan. Some GT5S and GT5S models even raced competitively, proving this car was more than just a pretty face with a death wish. But there's one last thing that makes the Pantera truly legendary. It's not the performance, not the looks, it's what it stood for. The Pantera was never about perfection. It wasn't meant to be flawless like a Porsche. It wasn't chasing Ferrari's finesse. It was built by a racer, financed by a corporate giant, and shaped by artisans with blowtorches and espresso. It was rebellion on wheels. It was America meets Italy, meets absolute insanity. It was flawed genius. And that's why it's beloved today. Because even with its hot floors, creaky clutches and angry steering, the Pantera gave something no modern car does: soul. You didn't just drive it, you bonded with it. You feared it, you respected it, and when you mastered it, it became an extension of your spine. Today, the Pantera stands as a time capsule of ambition, ego, and old-school engineering bravado. And that, my friends, is why it's one of the greatest forgotten supercars ever made. The 1972 De Tomaso Pantera was beautiful, brutal, and bonkers. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't even practical, but it was real, it was raw, and it refused to be tamed. It took the best and worst of two automotive cultures and mashed them together into something unforgettable. And that's what makes it legendary. If you made it this far into the video, you're a true car lover. So go ahead, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear the gospel of Pantera, and subscribe to AB Tech Lab for more shocking, deep dive automotive stories that nobody else is telling. Until next time, stay fast, stay curious, and never forget the past still has plenty of horsepower left to uncover.